Hey guys, it's Tim. If this is your first time to the Living in Denver, Colorado channel, make sure you subscribe to it and hit the little notification bell down below so that you can be updated for all things Denver, Colorado. I upload videos once a week, and in them I go through everything from great places to eat and things to do and everything you can imagine Denver, Colorado. But most importantly, I talk about the houses that are here. I get calls, texts, emails from people like you all the time that are making the move to Denver and they need a little help. Well, I love helping them and I love helping you. So today we're going to talk a little bit about Wash Park. In the presentation, I'll go over the history of the park and most importantly, the houses that are here and the people who live here. So without babbling on too long. So, you're thinking about moving to Denver, Colorado, but you don't want to be in the heart of the big city? Well, if you want to stay kind of more in the neighborhoods, you're in luck. In this video, I'm going to talk about one of those neighborhoods, the Wash Park neighborhood. I'm actually standing right in Wash Park. Just behind me is Smith Lake, which kind of is the center of this park. Neighborhood outside of here is really one of the more unique parts of town. I love this part of town, quite honestly. In the video, I'll tell you all about what to do in the hood, what kind of place to eat at, place to work out at, and at the end of the video, I'll tell you all about what you can buy around here. So, if you're thinking Mile High hood, let's get started. The place you want to bring visitors to show off Denver. While I certainly wholeheartedly agree to that, I have not brought my own family here when they visit, but whatever. The area itself is centered around Washington Park, which you actually just saw me at right at the beginning of this video. The park itself, it's right around 160 acres. As far as history goes, it dates back to like the early 1900s when the German designer, and I'm going to read this one and totally screw it up, Reinhard Scheutz designed the park with the French countryside in mind. He, definitely put a bunch of flower boxes and stuff like that all along the many paths. Actually, one of its most infamous residents, Molly Brown, the Titanic survivor, or Kathy Bates in the movie, she actually funded a lot of the park's setup initially. Namely, she set up and funded the field house on the east end of the park. The field house was actually named for its original habitant, the poet Eugene Field. He wrote the children's poem Winkin', Blinkin', and Nod. If you are familiar with it, I am because I have kids. They actually have kind of a really cool statue of that memorializing that poem in the park. So inside the park, you're going to find all sorts of trails and, all it's busy all the time. I mean, you walk through there when it's -3 degrees. There seems like there's somebody running around or biking or something. The most popular and really the most well-traversed path goes all the way around the perimeter of the park. It's just a walker, runner, biker's paradise. It's exactly 2.5 miles around. There's in the park also, there is a few tennis courts, a couple playgrounds. There is a croquet area. And then the lake, obviously, Smith Lake, which I was standing right in front of. At the lake, there is a boathouse there. It's kind of like an Italian-looking boathouse. It was built in 1913, and it actually can be rented out for things like weddings or parties. I've seen proms going on there. It's actually really neat. There's kind of a small beach around the lake. It's during the summertime, it's crowded with like sunbathers and stuff like that. But, obviously right now during the wintertime, it's not as busy as it should be, or it normally is. I really like the flower beds in the park. There is one on the south end that is actually an exact replica of Martha Washington's flower bed when she had it in Mount Vernon. It's kind of just a little history thing that I think is kind of goofy and fun. There is a rec center in the park. It was built in 1971. There is an indoor pool in there, which is really cool. There's tons of free weights. There's a basketball courts. Actually, year round, it's open and used. Right now, it's mainly used for a lot of classes. There is yoga classes, and you can take ceramics classes. They even have square dancing classes. So if you're wanting to get your square dance on, you found the right place. And also in the rec center here, they have bingo and bridge clubs that meet there every week. So I know that you've been hankering to play some bingo when you're new to town. Well, you're in luck. We got a place for you. It's like $200 a year if you want to get a membership to the rec center. That's for residents of the neighborhood. So I'm going to babble on about the history forever, or I could just talk about the map. So let's take a look at the map. So looking at the map here, you'll see that on the southern part of the hood, you'll see I-25, which is one of the major highways that goes really all throughout Colorado. If you're looking on the west side of the hood, there is South Downing Street. On the east side is University Boulevard. Both University and Downing, they go all the way into downtown or even go down south into town. University changes names a few times and really kind of goes in a full circle and almost out to the airport. On the north side of the park or the neighborhood, it's actually the Denver Country Club and First Avenue. First Avenue is a borderline for the Cherry Creek North neighborhood as well. I already filmed another video about that. If you haven't seen it, check it out. Alameda, it's a road that kind of cuts all the way right through the middle, horizontally through the hood here, and Franklin Street kind of writes the middle of the park going north to south. So as you see, on the west end of the neighborhood is the park I just talked about. In the park, there's all sorts of bike trails and running trails and stuff like that. Almost every street in the neighborhood has dedicated bike lanes. It's a big part of the city's initiative for biking, and it really keeps the speed down, quite honestly. There are just many little commercial districts that kind of dot around the neighborhood here. South Gaylord has a really good one. There's a little boutique that my neighbor works at. It's called Wish Boutique. That's right off of Gaylord Street. There is a co-working office complex there. There's actually one of my favorite little pizza joints in town. It's called Homegrown Tap and Dough. I had my daughter's birthday party here the last day before everything shut down before the pandemic. And then if you go up on Alameda, there is the Blackbird Public House. It's just a little tavern, but it's cool. And then honestly, I think the best wings in town you're going to find at Fire on the Mountain, right off of Alameda as well. As far as buses, there is bus routes that kind of go all over the neighborhood, kind of get you really anywhere you need to go in the Denver metro area. There is a light rail stop at like Louisiana and Pearl, which is just in the neighborhood. It's also borderline. Can't really see it on the map. There is Denver University, which is a really great college. It's kind of right in the middle neighborhood. It's DU is what we call around here. They also have a light rail on their campus, and that is one of the major ones because that is one of the few stations where you can really kind of go anywhere, without transferring. You can go to the airport, you can go downtown, you can go out west to Lakewood, all the way down south to Littleton. I don't know. So let's move on and talk more about the data for the neighborhood, the homes and who lives in these homes and what kind of stuff they do. There are just over 7,500 people who live in this neck of the woods. People live here in, various apartments and all sorts of beautiful homes, quite honestly. The neighborhood itself is actually one of the oldest in the Denver area, and some of these huge brick homes were built in like the early 20th century, some of them even in like the 1800s. These century-old red brick homes really kind of dot the west end of the neighborhood here. It is more of an upper class area, but not a snooty area by any means. Average age is right around 35, and less than 20% of the people who live here are under the age of 18. Um, as far as education goes, it's actually a very highly educated area. Almost 80% of the adults have degrees, and I would say the majority of those, have higher degrees, whether they be PhDs, MDs, MBAs, what have you. And then going back to the park, because it is so centrally located, the neighborhood around here really has a small commute time. It's like 10 minutes, I think. A lot of the people actually work in the neighborhood itself and can work from home. That's obviously a new thing throughout the world, really, but some of these people have done it forever because they have, home offices. Household income, it's just below 200 grand a year, and there's just over 25% of the population is made up of families. It's really just an area made up of a lot of young professionals and, more of a mature person, a person who is kind of in the tech industry, I would say, just while I'm thinking about it. And I've talked to a lot of locals who have kind of given me this idea, and I've recognized it myself over the years. Uh, Denver has kind of like a two types of like a setup in terms of wealth. It's divided into, what I and natives have called old money versus new money. I would say this part of town is more of that old money. It's that generational wealth where the people have lived in the area for many years, or they live near the homes they grew up in, and the brothers, sisters, moms, dads, they all live relatively close in the area. And then on the other side of the coin, there is, what again I've heard called as new money. New money are, more of the younger families that work in like the tech industry. They tend to live in like the southern part of the city, like Highlands Ranch, Castle Rock, closer to like the Denver Tech Center, which is home to a lot of the technology companies, quite honestly. I mean, obviously, not only, old money and new money live in those respective areas. It's just something that, as I talk to people over the last 17, 18 years, I've been brought up. It's been pointed out to me, I guess. Sorry, squirrel. Let's get back on track here. Uh, Homes in Wash Park are valued just over 800K. That's about 40% over the national average, which is really cool. It's values are really just an estimate. It's kind of takes into account recent sales of similar homes, the buyers, the age, the condition of these homes, and also the neighborhood's safety and locale to the rest of the city state. I mean, frankly, value is really hard to judge because it's kind of either priceless because you really don't want to put a dollar amount on your home by any means, but at the same time, it has to have something, and that's how we price homes as realtors, so that's what it is. The rental people, they rent for average of like 2,200 a month. It's above the national average of like 1,400 a month. The Denver metro area, it's like 2,000 a month, so it's slightly over that. I mean, again, people want to rent here because they want to live here. It's a desirable place to live, so they're willing to pay a little bit more in rent to live here, and most of the people can afford to do that live in this area. As far as rental properties, most of them are apartments. There's not many homes that are leased out. I mean, obviously there are some, but the apartments, they're generally between like 1 to 3 bedrooms and 1 to 2 baths, mainly on like the lower side of that. Um, as far as homes go, there's been really substantial talk in the last like 5, 10 years about people wanting to develop the area further. The neighborhood itself, it's really a tightly knit neighborhood, both physically and metaphorically speaking. I mean, it's a very dense area as far as, the homes are close together. And, you've also lived next to the same people for generations. And, some of the families who've lived here have lived here since before the park was here. But anywho, because of that, there is a lot of people that want to develop it further. And, some of that is, and I'm sure you've heard the term pop the top, where they actually make a second story on top of it. A lot of the people in the area don't want this to happen if it is able to happen. I mean, there are a ton of two-story homes in the area, but the city really can't do anything to prevent it, and developers do what developers do, which is develop. So, it's not, just as an aside, it's just something that happens, but they don't like it to happen. The people who live here forever don't like it to happen. It's not to say it, you can't or anyone else can't. Sorry, another squirrel. So the park itself, it's busy all the time. I mean, like I said, it could be 20 degrees, it could be negative 20 degrees, it could be 120 degrees, and there'll be people in the park. I mean, running, biking, all the time. I mean, it's crazy. Given the amount of nice days, there are obviously more people there on nice days. But that, coupled with the people that are driving through here and biking through here, makes traffic a disaster. And that's putting it lightly. There's really not a quiet day around here. So, if you're trying to turn left from one of these 2-lane streets onto another street, it backs up traffic for blocks. I mean, it's crazy. But either way, I mean, that's what happens when you live in a densely populated and densely developed area. There is a lot of traffic. There is a lot of people. So Wash Park is like any place in the world where there's a lot of people who want to be there, and there's a lot of people that are there. So, I mean, it's a desirable place to live, and the cost of living kind of backs that up. It's not a cheap place to live by any means, whether you're renting or buying. I mean, you can see the value of the homes confirm that it's an expensive place to live. But, with that being said, there are tons of things to do here. There's beautiful homes. You have one of the prettiest parks in the country, in my opinion, and you're close to everything. And, bring your friends here, bring your family here, show off where you're from, and you'll see how it is. Wash Park, it's really a can't miss. It's always good to know where, the closest fire department is in a neighborhood, the closest police station. You always want to know where the closest hospital is. I'm going to go over those real briefly here in Wash Park. There is one hospital here that I've actually been treated at myself. And, just south of the neighborhood here is actually one of the finest medical districts in the country. Porter Hospital is right in the middle of the neighborhood here. It has a full service emergency room and a surgery center, birthing center. A few years ago, I actually went to Porter Hospital with stomach pains. They told me I was having an appendicitis. I need to have my appendix taken out. Surgery was completed within like 5 hours. I got there at like 2 o'clock in the morning. So, I could tell you that they're pretty good. But again, going back to just south of the neighborhood, there is the Swedish Medical Center. They have every service imaginable. I mean, they have a great emergency room. They have a flight for life there. And countless doctors have their offices there. Next to Swedish, there's actually Craig Hospital. Craig Hospital is a world-renowned rehab and research hospital. They specialize in spinal cord injuries and traumatic brain injuries. Craig is started as, and I'm going to quote it here, a colony of brotherly love for men with tuberculosis, has really become a hub for both behavioral and physical rehab. Most important patients that are here are their traumatic brain injury patients. They just do amazing things with people from all over the world who have suffered these TBIs, and they repair them up both neurologically, physically. I mean, a lot of brain or stroke victims end up here, and you know, a lot of just long-term rehab places are done here, and it's really just a phenomenal hospital. Denver Police and Fire Departments, they actually are right just in Wash Park Fire Station. I believe it's Station 21 is just on the north end of the park. That's always good with so many people on any given day in the park. EMTs and fire department is always close, which is always good. Uh, it's part of the District 3 of the Denver Police Department. Their station is just over on University. District 3, in my own experience at least, have some of the better police officers in the department. They really have a really, really good like community policing ideology. They walk around, they talk to the neighborhood, they are seen in the commercial district. I don't know, it's just a really good part of Denver to live in if you're interacting with the police. So again, I mean, you're kind of protected by world-class police department. You have a great, great fire department here. You have world-class hospitals, all very, very nearby. No matter what happens to you, whether you have rehab concerns or emergency or having a baby, whatever else, or you're having your appendix taken out, there's all sorts of great things to take advantage of in the area or not take advantage of, depending on how you think about it. So let's talk about what there is to do around Wash Park. Fun in the park. There are just so many great things to do in the Wash Park neighborhood. I'm going to talk about a few of the places where I have personally eaten or shopped at. There's some of the places I wish I could go to, or at least wish I could go to more often. And there's other places that I am relying on hearsay, but it's trusted hearsay, my wife. So, like I've mentioned earlier, I love the wings on Fire on the Mountain, the pizza from Homegrown. Uh, there are so many restaurants. There's restaurants everywhere around Wash Park. One of the amazing restaurants in all of Denver is right here in the hood. It's called the Sushi Den. And I'm sure you're thinking, like I was thinking, sushi in Denver. We are landlocked, and how are we going to get good sushi? And I don't know. Sushi Den solved that problem for us because the owner actually has fresh fish flown in daily. I mean, they have some of the best sushi rolls I've ever had. The Wagyu beef roll is literally to die for. There is, like a vinegared rice hand roll where they can actually get cooked seafood inside of it, or obviously the raw seafood. They have, classic rolls and stuff like that. They have a huge sake menu. Uh, they also have really good wine selection, which is somewhat surprising to me, I guess. I don't know. I mean, if you are looking for something unique, they have a sake mule, and I like to have it with Tito's vodka in it. They're only open for dinner, which is kind of disappointing, but oh well, what do I to judge? On Google, Sushi Den has nearly 4,000 five-star reviews. Yelpers, they give it a 4.5. Almost every review on both review sites talk about the freshness of the food, and you want to definitely get reservations while you're here. I guess that's a good thing, because a true testament to a good restaurant is that it's busy, and you have to be there and make a reservation to get there, and doubly so when they might run out of food because it's flown in. So again, eat here, fill up here. It's a little costly, but it's certainly well worth the experience to check out the Sushi Den. There is another place. It's not. I would consider it fine. I would not consider it fine dining by any means. It's just, quite honestly, it's an old-fashioned bar. It's called the Campus Lounge. It's right off the campus of DU. And I'm sure you're thinking like I was thinking before I went there. Oh, great, a college bar. Well, yes, it is technically a college bar, but it's not like a frat guy bar by any means. They're, it's just a good home style place. They have really, really good like pub food. They have a fantastic smoked pork fries. I mean, these fries have all sorts of cheeses on top of it, and then freshly smoked pulled pork. I mean, it's really, really good. And then they also have bar staples, 50-cent wing nights and Friday nights. I think they still do all you can eat crab legs. I don't know. I mean, it's a bar. I mean, it's great, but they have good food, which is, you can't find it all bars. Speaking of food, they have a really good brunch here. I mean, Denver, it's definitely a brunch hotspot, but here they do it every day. Most of the places around town either only do it on weekends or, on certain days. Here they do it every day until like 3 o'clock in the afternoon. They have mojitos, they have mimosas. I mean, just brunch is a can't miss if you're looking for something. And then also if you're looking to hit up some of their specials, they actually have happy hour. Actually, they call it an all city hour every day. They call it an all city hour because their prices are for food and drinks are $3.03, $7.20, and $9.83. Those are actually the 3 area codes in the Denver metro area. I'm gonna check Google real quick. Google, they have it at a 4.5. They actually, some of the reviewers talk about the vegan options, and obviously all the TVs that have all sorts of sports on there. Yelp, they are a little bit lower to 4. That's not surprising at all for a college bar. I mean, the bartenders are great here. Yelpers say, oh, they don't mind to have you pour, but either way, I mean, it's just a great go-to spot to catch a game, grab a beer, or just have good old greasy bar treats. The next up is the Devil's Food Bakery. This is one where I'm relying on the hearsay of my wife. She goes there all the time. She is a teacher, and they just they like it for bakery events like birthdays and stuff like that at school. They have like a standard cake that they order, and it's customizable for each person. I don't know, it's just kind of a cool thing to do, and they actually decorate all of their cakes with fresh flowers. I have had some of the buttercream cake, a few days of sitting it in the teacher lounge refrigerator, and it is phenomenal. I mean, even after sitting for a couple days, it's still juicy and great. They, the florist that they use for decorating their cakes with the fresh flowers is actually attached to the building. So, it's kind of a cool place if you're, grabbing a cake for somebody's birthday to grab a bouquet of flowers while you're in there too. It's kind of a, one-stop shop. They have, you know, every coffee you could ever imagine. There's all sorts of other pastries in addition to all their cakes. As I have not been there myself, I can't speak to the staff or the ambiance or anything, but I'll rely on Google, where they have over 400 5-star reviews. All of these reviews kind of talk about the diversity of all the stuff they have. Yelpers, they have it right around the same. They have more mentions of a vegetable galette. I don't know what that is, so I don't know. That's just what I'm seeing on quite a few of the Yelp reviews. Again, it's priced well for a small bakery. It's been locally owned forever, so it's just it's a good spot to check out. So now we have uh, eaten and drank our way around Wash Park for a little bit. Let's shop a little bit. So in the middle of the neighborhood here, it's actually one of my favorite places I've ever been shopping at. It's, well, if you've seen the movie The Mighty Ducks, and if you haven't, go to Disney Plus and watch it. It's a great movie. It's timeless. there was a little hockey shop that they all, worked at and shopped at. And I don't know. I mean, it was, anyway, Sports Plus, it really reminds me of exactly of that. I mean, just like a small town little sports shop. It's really nestled right in the middle of the hood here. It's just a really old building. They sell pretty much anything for any sport. I think that their main focus is hockey. Some disagree, but I mean, I get all my hockey stuff from there. They have everything from Nordic skiing gear. They have snowshoes. They have pickleball stuff. There's longboards that are, you'll see all over Wash Park anyways. Lawn games that you can buy to play in the park. I mean, shoot, you name it, they got it. They sell all sorts of new gear, but they also have a little bit of a used section. That used section is sometimes from consignment services. Consignment services are fantastic if you are new to town because you might want to try out something like Nordic skiing or pickleball or longboards or what have you, and you can get those at a relatively good price right here from Sports Plus. Going back to Google real quick, they all mention great prices. They have it right around a 4.5. They are on Google and Yelp as well. They are critical of their maintenance and service departments. I have not personally used their service department to sharpen skates or wax boards or anything like that, so I can't speak to that. But that is just, people are critical because that's what people are, critical. I don't know. I mean, it's just a great place if you're a sports enthusiast or a sports trier outer, or shoot, it's one of the best. Another place right around the corner from here is a little liquor store. It's called, well, it's not even little. It's called Bottle 33. It is, oh my gosh, it's just the coolest concept for a liquor store that you can imagine. It has, things all around the store that kind of represent the trends throughout the history of beer, wine, spirits. 1933 is the year that Prohibition ended. So, I mean, that tells you in and of itself that in the title, in the name of the store, they're kind of talking about what it is. So it just encompasses, like, the history of it all. They have a staff there that literally lives and breathes alcohol. I mean, they explain things to the finest detail that you can ever imagine. I mean, stuff like the name of an alcohol or the taste of it or what you could pair with it. I mean, I went there a few years to grab a bottle of rum and really started talking about like the history of Captain Morgan and Admiral Nelson, and admirals are actually more admired than a captain because they are in charge of like a fleet of ships, whereas the captain just has one. I don't know. I mean, it's just something I remembered after. Oh man, that was probably 6, 7 years ago now. It's kind of like going to a museum of alcohol. I mean, you cannot have this experience at any other liquor store I have been to across the country. I mean, it's it's a bartender's paradise by any means. I mean, they have all sorts of tasting events and stuff like that, and you can set up your home bar literally right in the store. You don't have to go anywhere else because they have, you know, the alcohol, the glassware, the mixing gear, stuff like that. It's just, I mean, even if you're not interested in alcohol, it is interesting the history of it because it kind of all involves it all together. It's just one of a kind place. Okay, so now we have shopped and we've eaten and drank. Let's work out a little bit. As I already said earlier, the huge trail around it is crazy busy all of the time. I mean, people are always walking, biking, running, skating, longboarding. I don't know if it is a trend where you are. I know it's huge in Denver, is electric bikes. They are all over Walsh Park. I mean, I don't know if I would call it exercising if you're riding around on an electric bike, but they do, so not my problem. Uh, there is a around the boathouse, like I said, you can actually rent out a lot of kind of like water toys. I mean, I I rented out a water trike a few years ago. It was kind of ridiculous looking, but I mean, it was fun to do, and I mean, it was relatively inexpensive. If you want to work out at the rec center itself, they have great neighborhood rates. Um, and also, if you are part of the neighborhood, you get first chance to reserve, the boathouse for a wedding or something like that. Either way, I mean, on a nice day or even not so nice day, the park is packed outdoors all the time. If you are a yogi, Wash Park has a few yoga studios right nearby. I am not a yoga person by any means. My wife is, and she has gone to the Center Strength Yoga Studio. It, it's just a cool studio according to her, where it's wall to wall yoga. On the main level, it's just covered wall to wall to mats with mats, and I can smell the aroma or the essential oils as you're out on the street. It's just you can smell it out on the street when you're walking by, even if you don't know what you're doing. Um, Downstairs, they have more of like a physical therapy and Pilates emphasis. They have all sorts of instructors that offer private sessions, and they actually have a masseuse on staff as well. I'm going to quote my wife real quick for here from my notes, that it's like having an exclusive yoga studio for you and your friends in your basement. A lot of the reviews here, I'm going to go and Google real quick. They have it 5 out of 5 stars on Google. They mentioned Jennifer, who is the owner of the shop or the studio. She is a healer, and the wellness aspect of the sessions are very, very highly recommended, and the prices are apparently good for yoga studios. Yelpers also give it a perfect score, which is rare as far as Yelp goes, in my opinion. I mean, Center Strength is just a great spot for the yogi in you, or at least in my case, for my family. I'm going to circle back around now to the boathouse at the park. You can rent the water equipment like I talked about earlier. They have kayaks, stand-up paddle boards. Like I said, I tried the water trike and it was not pretty, but you know, if you don't want to rent the equipment for the water, they also rent out bikes and choppers and something called, like, I think it's called a surrey. It's kind of like a little car where 2 or 4 people, you pedal together. It's got a canopy on the top, and I don't know. It's just kind of a cool thing to see people doing. I have not tried it, but apparently everybody else does, because the reason I haven't tried it is because they never have them available because they're all rented out. You can rent out the boathouse for itself for weddings and stuff like that. I mean, you want to definitely pick it out far in advance. When I was looking where to have my wedding at, it was rented out, 2-3 years in advance. It rents out for like $600 on weekdays and then $1,000 for weekends. There is, you know, you can have it catered in. There is a kitchen in the boathouse that can be used. Only thing that is weird that I remember when I was, searching it out 7-8 years ago, they had, if you wanted to serve alcohol at the wedding, you had to get a special permit from the city. I don't know. It was just weird to me at the time. Maybe it is a normal thing. I don't remember anymore, but I just remember that sticking out in my head. Sorry. Google real quick. They have it very highly at a 4.7. They all talk about, wedding ceremonies there and, private events there. Yelpers think it's a little more expensive than it should be, but the venue is just great. And Yelp also says, if you don't own the stuff, or if you're, just visiting in town, or if you have friends and family in town, rent some equipment from here. I mean, just it's it's a low price, high reward option for checking out Wash Park. Either way, if you're in town for a week or a day or a month or a year, check out Wash Park, especially if the weather is beautiful. It usually is in Denver, so check it out. All right, I'm going to switch gears a little bit here, talk about the churches and schools in Wash Park. This is an old neighborhood, so they have all sorts of old schools and old parks and old churches. It's a standby. I'll tell you about some of the schools, and they're the traditional ones, and then some of the churches. I'm going to throw one curveball at you if you have not seen it already on the slide. I'll talk about it in just a second. There is all sorts of Christian churches kind of all around Wash Park, in and outside of the neighborhood. Exactly. There is the Wash Park Church of Christ, part of the broader Church of Christ. Which is actually 4 other Christian denominations got together and started the Church of Christ. The Church of Christ here, they really, really focus on social justice issues, and they actually have a food bank that it's one of the bigger ones in the city. It's called Fish. They deliver their food bank food to all across the city, really. It's kind of cool. There's St. John's Lutheran Church. They focus on Bible study there. They have all sorts of family events there. I went to a funeral there not long ago, and I don't know, it was really neat to be part of that community just for a short time. Right? So, as I said, here's the curveball. You are reading it correctly. There is the International Church of Cannabis. It is an actual church and has actually been around for over 100 years. In 2017, the church building was unoccupied, and it was bought up by people representing this religion. The religion itself is called Elevationism, and it celebrates the spiritual benefits of cannabis. So if you're driving by it, you would think it's just a typical church. Once inside, you'll be pleasantly surprised. It's a Technicolor Dreamcoat. The entire ceiling, a la Michelangelo in the Sistine Chapel, it's painted a beautiful rainbow, and actually, it was painted by a Spanish artist, Okudo San Miguel. Um, it's just beautiful, whether you are into the cannabis part of it or not. It's just really, really beautiful. Obviously, there is a giant marijuana leaf painting as you walk in the door, and underneath that, there is a very apropos quote that there are rows upon rows to smoke on. The services here are, uh, let's say, unique would be an understatement. It starts with a 9-minute guided meditation and a contemplative journey through the wisdom of the ages. After that, there is a 25-minute psychedelic light show set to classic rock songs. During the services, smoking is not required, but it is certainly encouraged. I guess you could call it some of the parishioners that may stop by or have stopped by in the past. Snoop Dogg's been there. Tommy Chong comes here a lot. Seth Rogen has been there. The True TV show, if you've heard of it, 101 Places to Party Before You Die. They actually shot their first ever episode at the church. I don't know. It's cool to experience. If you could stand the stench, check it out. Schools in Wash Park, they're pretty straightforward. Denver South House, Denver South High School. It's harder to say than you think. It's right on the south end of the park. There's a Methodist school. The preschool, the Methodist preschool, they're kind of unique in the sense that they are really, really focused on like the whole child, the soul, the body, and the spirit of the child. Curveball school, it's not nearly as curvy or wacky as the church one, but there's actually a really good dance school here. And, you know, they actually offer wedding dance lessons. So if you are, you know, getting married and you have two left feet, come on, check it out and they'll help you out. So these are separated up into different categories, and I separated up from active sales, pending sales, and all of the closed sales for the last year. So for the last 365 days, obviously back until December 1st of 2021. So looking at this numbers, it kind of really speaks to the people that are here, the people that live here, the people that call this place home, and what's important to them as far as houses and, you know, types of homes and how much the homes are selling for, all sorts of stuff like that. Let's check out first and foremost the 1-bedroom, 1-bathroom homes. There are right now 2 active listings. There are none pending, and 20 of them have sold in the last year. Looking at it, the prices kind of range anywhere between like 250 grand and 1.5 million. They're definitely smaller homes. The average is like 800 square feet. These are all condos, quite honestly. They kind of scattered around the neighborhood. You know, these condos speak to the demographics of the areas where, you know, only 27% of the homes are actually owned by families. So, you know, some of these are single people that just rented out a condo because they love the area and they don't need that much space. Next up, I checked out 2 bedrooms and 1 bath homes. There are right now only 2 on the market. None are pending. 13 have sold over the last year. They actually sold the most over the asking price. They sold 12% over ask price almost every time, on average at least. These are still somewhat small, but, you know, I always check for price per square foot because it kind of tells you what people are willing to pay for smaller houses, if that makes any sense. Let's look at 2 bedrooms, 2 bath homes. Actually, if you look at it, these homes are actually smaller than the 2 bedroom, 1 bath homes, on average at least. There have been 27 of them closed in the last year. These are mainly detached homes. I mean, there is very little inventory with the 2-2 setup. There's only 1 available right now on market. There's 2 under contract. Price point actually went up quite a bit. It's now ranges between 400K and 1.2 million. I would say they were priced pretty accurately when they went on the market because they only closed for 1% over asking price, which, you know, means a realtor did a good job or a bad job, depending on who you talk to, I guess. All right, now the big ones. The majority of the homes in Wash Park actually fit into this category. The majority of them have more than 3 baths, more than 3 bedrooms and more than 2 bathrooms. As you can see, there's 140 of them that sold over the last year. There are more active and more pending than any other category I found. Almost all of these homes were listed over $1 million. The highest one was listed at $7.9 million. If you are still on the market for looking, and you're looking for a $7.9 million home, it is still on the market, so let me know. These homes, they all sat on the market for just under a month. That's all I got from Wash Park. If you want any more current information, just make sure to get in hold of me and make sure you like the video, subscribe to the video, and that way we can make sure you're keeping in touch about everything living in Denver. And as always, if you do want to live in Denver, give me a call, shoot me a text, give me an email, and I will be sure to make sure you have a smooth move to to altitude.